Record. All right. So, hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Allison McWilliams. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Assistant Vice President for Mentoring and Alumni Personal and Career Development here at Wake Forest. Our team provides resources, support, coaching, and connection for Wake Forest alumni, including our conversation here today. So I am thrilled to welcome you to today's webinar on moving from stuck to thriving, your journey to a job you love. Whether you're here because you're facing a layoff, you're ready for a pivot, or you're just feeling a bit unmotivated, our facilitator for today's webinar will help you gain clarity, overcome obstacles, and design a career that truly fits you. Before we get started, I just want to go over a little bit of housekeeping. So you are muted and your videos are turned off. That has been done intentionally. And I request that you keep it that way so that we have the best experience for all of our participants. We'll have about 45 minutes of content and then 15 minutes for Q&A. So please put those questions in the chat as we go, and we will get to them at the end. I am going to put a handout link into the chat as we get started. I emailed that out to everyone, but I will also add that in the chat in case you need that. And as you can see, we are recording today's webinar. I will send that link to you along with some follow-up resources after the fact. I am going to stop the recording before we do the Q&A part. So now let me introduce today's speaker, certified career coach and founder of Create Your Career Path Career Coaching, Hallie Crawford. Hallie will be familiar to some of you today as this is the third time she has been with us, and we are thrilled to welcome her back. In addition to coaching, Hallie is a speaker and author based out of Atlanta, and since 2002, her team of coaches have helped thousands of people find and succeed in their dream job. She's regularly featured in media, including U.S. News, Forbes, CNN, Money Magazine, and the Wall Street Journal. Hallie has an undergrad degree from Vanderbilt University and a master's degree from the University of Illinois, and has personal experience with going through her own career transition as well. So Hallie, I will now turn it over to you.
Thanks, Allison. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you all for being here today to talk about finding and identifying a job you truly enjoy. We know there's a lot of changes going on out there. So as Allison said at the beginning, whether you've been laid off, whether you're looking for that next challenge for yourself, whatever situation you're in, we are going to cover all of those bases as much as we possibly can today to help you define and identify what would be the most fulfilling job and path for you in the long run. And we'll talk a little bit about job searching and things you need to do to make that happen as well. In some cases, for some of you might find that, hey, I can stay where I am, but make some tweaks or adjustments based on what Hallie's saying today. So as a reminder, as we go today, please feel free to jot down any questions, put them in the chat box. I'm happy to answer those as we go, and we will have time for Q&A at the end. So we already had a great introduction. Thanks for that. So I won't belabor this. I've been a certified career coach since 2002. My kind of running joke is, luckily, or at least for a while, the majority of my gray hair was below, but starting to come in here a little bit more at the top. I blame my teenager for that. And the advice that we are going to give you today, though, is advice that we give to all of our clients. So I want this to be as practical, tangible, and realistic as possible for you all. And one of the things I always like to say at the very beginning, to kind of set the stage here and get started, is because we're going to give you a lot of tips and advice for what you can do next to thrive in your career in the long run. I would recommend choosing one action step along the way that makes the most sense for you, whatever resonates the most for you based on your situation or what might be relevant. And then as a reminder, we are recording today, so you will get a copy of that automatically. There's a handout in the chat box, so you can download that if you want to kind of take notes as we go. I will also, in just a moment here, put a link to the slides in the chat box, and we'll have a QR code so you can revisit all of these things later. So pick one thing that you will commit to in the next week so that you've got something tangible to latch on to and something that you will work from our session today. I don't know about you, but I always end these webinars, right? Or if I go to a conference or a meeting and I'm jazzed and ready to go, and then understandably, we get distracted by things. So good to have that one action step that you will commit to. So here's the deal. What we want you to know up front here, and then I'll show you our specific agenda on our next slide, is that job satisfaction, it really is possible. And statistics show they typically come out every few years, whether it's through the Conference Board, the Gallup organization, et cetera. And when we read these, usually there is low job satisfaction, not as high as we would like. And then when we add to this, kind of what's difficult, I think, right now is that with layoffs and economic concerns, that impacts how we feel about our work and if we feel confident, comfortable, everything else. However, what we want you to know is that the good news is that you can feel satisfied in your job, have a sense of accomplishment, and in some cases, even like get excited about your work and certain tasks. And if you take charge of your destiny, so to speak, you can find the right path. You can find a new job that's a good fit for you sooner than you think. And what we always want to tell our clients and remind them about is that it's being proactive about steering your career in the right direction versus reactive and reacting to whatever comes your way. So the concept here is that your job is your best asset. And you need to treat it as such, just like an investment. You need to take care of it, nurture it, plan for it, and be proactive about all the time what your next steps are. Even if you know your job is set and you're not going anywhere, knowing that, okay, I am going to be proactive about things and just make sure that I remain marketable, satisfied, all of that other good stuff is critically important. And that's the bottom line thing that we want you to get from today is being proactive versus reactive about your career progression and planning. So let's look at our agenda on our next slide here. So first of all, we are going to talk about fulfillment and why we feel like that's a really important first step to defining the right job for you and getting into the right fit. Second, or step number 2, is we're going to talk about how to clarify your values. Those things are very much aligned and kind of play into each other. So why values are important, because it's going to help you be in the right work environment, but also performing tasks that you enjoy. It could be that you've got the right coworkers around you, that you believe in the mission or vision of your organization. All of this other good stuff, values are really important. We're going to talk about step number 3, which is leveraging our ideal career model that will give you a checklist to help you brainstorm ideas, but then narrow them down based on practical considerations. And then step number 4, obviously, is if you decide, okay, I need to make a move or I need to conduct a job search, we want you to conduct as targeted a search as you possibly can. As we said earlier, we will have Q&A at the end, but quick note on that, please feel free to put questions in the chat box along the way. I'm happy to pause and answer. And I would love it if you all would also in the chat box share resources, comments or suggestions that you have, anything else. I love it when we can all learn from each other. So please make sure you locate the chat box for that purpose. And I also just put a link in the chat box to the slides as well. In case you don't have your phone and can't use the QR code, you can click that link and you should be able to download them from there. All right, let's dive in. So the first thing that we always want to tell our clients, just by the way, really important, kind of setting the stage, if you will, is that it's critical to have the right perspective when you are thinking about, I want to thrive in my career and enjoy and love my job. We are not saying that your job is going to be perfect every single second of the day. Nor are we saying that, like, if you just put it out there, like the perfect job is going to fall in your lap. It's work to make this happen. And I will tell you that I've worked very hard in the past 20 plus years to grow my company to the place that it is today. But the deal is that I enjoy what I do so much that, like you've heard people say before, it doesn't feel like work. I actually look forward to it. So we are not saying, remember, that there's this magic wand out there and everything's going to be peaches and cream perfectly, right? There's always going to be things that we don't like as much about our work and our jobs. That's just part of the deal. But what we're going for here, bottom line, is that the good parts about what you do and your job so far outweigh the parts that you may not like as much that you barely notice those and you can deal with them. That is the goal and kind of the right perspective to have. Okay. So we just want you to know and be upfront with people that we're not sitting here being Pollyanna and saying, you're not realistic about things too. But we love it when we get emails from our clients saying, I'm in my brand new job and I love it. It's so great. And of course, there's always going to be things that you may not like as much, but the good so far outweighs the bad that you barely notice it. That's the kind of right perspective. So a couple of things on this next slide. There's an action step and some statistics to look at. And then in just a minute, we'll do our poll here too. So the reason why it's so important, as we said earlier, to enjoy your work is because too many people don't. And as we all know, we spend a lot of time there. So, and we all know too that our jobs impact our personal life. As much as we might try to kind of keep those boundaries and separate it, we all know if we have a bad day at work, it's going to impact how we feel when we go home. So it's really important, we feel, for people to enjoy their jobs as much as they possibly can and get some sense of meaning, accomplishment, and satisfaction out of it. Okay. So we'd love to do this poll here. This is our first one of 3 for today. And we're curious kind of where you fall on this level, if you will, of dissatisfaction. And we'll give you a moment here to fill this out. And I know it may feel like, okay, I might be in between the two of these, and that's okay. So take your time with this. And as we're doing this, I do want to share one thing, but I'll give you all a moment to finish it actually, so we can stay focused. All right, so far, good participation, and we're kind of in the middle there, which makes sense. Okay, cool. It looks like we've got a good number of participants. If you want to close it out, Allison, I'm good with that. And if we take a look at our results in a good way, I'm actually, kind of happy about these. Is we're kind of in the middle here. So one piece of advice I want to share, regardless of your situation, but especially for those people that are saying, I'm about to run out the door and about to quit, is what we find, and this is the good news, is that a lot of times when people come to us for help with this career direction thing, they feel like they have to do something dramatically different than they were doing before in order to be satisfied. It's that idea of when we're frustrated and upset, we kind of go to the extremes, understandably. And what we want you to know is 9 times out of 10, you are able to make a course correction or a shift in your career path, whether it's just changing industries but staying in the same role, or staying in something very similar but doing it at a different organization. 9 times out of 10, a subtle shift can actually make the difference for you and your satisfaction. Now, yes, sometimes when we work with people, they do need to make a dramatic change. We had one client, for example, who came to us. She worked for one of the big 4 consulting firms. And at the beginning, she said, you know what, some days I feel like I need to go be a chef and do something completely different. Well, when it came down to it with her, she was in Chicago. With her, she realized, I actually like my coworkers, I like my clients, and I really like the work that I do in a lot of ways. I'd like to adjust the schedule a little bit. She came down to or realized that a lot of her values actually were being honored and she was leveraging her strengths in a lot of the right ways. It was her boss that was the thing that was driving her crazy and making things really difficult. So don't always assume that you have to go to this extreme measure in order to make a shift. And the model that we're going to show you today can help you identify how big of a change you need. So bottom line, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, don't assume that it has to be dramatic of a change. Sometimes making changes in certain areas can make a difference. The first step that you can take related to that is listed on this slide. A great exercise for you to do to get all of your thoughts like dumped out of your head and onto paper so that you can see things more objectively is to write down what works for you at your current career path and your current job and what doesn't work for you. What do you like and what do you not like? Write those down, and seeing them objectively on a piece of paper in black and white helps you be more objective about what's really going on. Two things we want you to think about there is to identify the themes in what you're saying. Are you talking a lot about, for example, with your dislikes, does it have a lot to do with the work environment, or does it have to do with your coworkers or your tasks? That gives you a clue to what kind of change you might need to make, right? And the second thing that's helpful to do as part of this exercise is to clarify for yourself too, what is permanent dissatisfaction versus short term? Like, is some of your dissatisfaction really because I'm working on this one project or I'm working with this one specific client? So clarify that as well so that you can understand what types of changes you need to make, how quickly, and if the change really needs to happen right now, et cetera, versus later on, because this might be just kind of a passing phase. Let's go into our first step here. So going back to our agenda, we're going to talk about defining fulfillment. And that first exercise can help you with this piece a little bit. So the reason why we want people to actually think about fulfillment first, even though sometimes I think they're like, well, why are we talking about this? Like, shouldn't we be discussing my strengths and what I'm good at? We absolutely do want you to think about those things. But what we find is if you take a few extra minutes at the beginning of considering what the right career path would be for you and what would be more rewarding, then you're actually going to find out about a lot of other jobs out there that you may not have even known existed. You're going to cast your net a little bit wider, be more creative with your thinking, brainstorm alternative ideas that will help you think outside the box more. If you start, for example, just with, I'm good at this and I need to get paid this amount, your thinking is going to be much more narrow. So if you take a look at our model, part of why we want you to define that is because these other reasons as well. It's usually the most difficult thing for people to define. They don't always know what their values are or what's going to give them that meaning. The other reason why we want you to think about fulfillment is if you take a look, this is a first quick glance at our career model, the fulfillment piece actually impacts all other pieces and vice versa. So for example, if you are not leveraging your strengths in the way that you want to, you're not going to be fulfilled. If you're not getting paid well, or in a way that you deserve, you're not going to be fulfilled, and vice versa. So it impacts everything else on the model. And this is why we have it here at the bottom, because you will brainstorm more ideas by thinking about what would be rewarding to you. And then if you look at this model and you're looking at your interests and your values and fulfillment, you can then start to narrow down those ideas based on, okay, what am I going to be qualified for? What am I going to be good at? And you will get closer to something that you truly enjoy as a result of following this process versus a different one, okay? And we talked about why fulfillment affects us personally, or why it's so important, because things affect us personally as well. In just a few moments, in the next couple of slides, we'll talk more about this career model. This is a model that I developed when I first started coaching in 2002, because I knew that people would want something that could serve as like a really quick checklist for them to see, okay, what do I need to be considering and how do I evaluate the opportunities that are out there? It needs to cover all of these bases. That's the bottom line. So one of the things that you can do to think a little bit more about what would be fulfilling and rewarding to you is we actually encourage you to take a few minutes and brainstorm alternative career paths and ideas and research alternative ideas based on things that you are interested in your personal life, dreams, interests, passions. And I'll give you a quick example here. So even if, let's say, let's say you're a photographer and as one of your hobbies and you love that, but it's not something that's going to be a practical career path for you because starting a business, the finances, all that other good stuff. But if you think about what draws you to that hobby, regardless of whether it is, are there things that you're drawn to, like the creativity or the beauty or creating an experience for someone or design or something like that, that could give you clues about what you'd like to incorporate more in your career path? So even if it's not being a photographer, for example, are there elements of things that you're drawn to related to it that can help you get ideas about what you'd want to incorporate in your next career path? The reason why there's a mermaid on this slide in Weeki Wachee is because as a kid, for me, I grew up in Florida and we went to Weeki Wachee a bunch. And I just thought that was the coolest job going. I wanted to be a mermaid when I grew up. And even though, as an adult, when I was figuring this out, that wasn't the most practical job for me for different reasons, when I thought about that childhood dream, there are values represented in that for me. The beauty of it, the entertaining people while educating them. I love hosting webinars like this. And also that sense of a little bit, at least for me as a kid, it seemed like a little bit risky to do that. I mean, yes, they have an air hose, but they're, floating around without, oxygen, all that other stuff. So my values as an adult still today are somewhat represented by that childhood dream, a value of risk, a value of educating people in some way, and doing so in a more entertaining way, as well as a little bit of that creativity. So it is worth thinking about and investigating those things. If you look at this next slide on the bottom left, to see if that gives you clues to some of the things you'd like to incorporate in your next job. Another way to define fulfillment and what would be rewarding for you is to write for 5 minutes, doesn't have to take that long, about how do you define success? What does success mean to you? And also to think about too, your ideal day at work. What qualities would it have for you? Some of our clients like to journal about this stuff and write things down, and that's great. Other people like to create a career vision board so that they've got something visual. Whatever works best for you is fine. But another way to identify some of your top 3 to 5 career values is kind of the number we recommend. Another exercise we do with our clients up front with them is to do and think about a peak experience exercise where they think about a time in their life or a moment in time when they felt lit up, like they were excited, they were fulfilled, they were jazzed, like it just felt like things were, running on all cylinders for them. And it could be a moment in time or a period of time, either way. So for some people, it might be a travel experience, for example. And what you want to do with this exercise to define your values or clarify them at this stage for you in your career and at this kind of transition point for you, what's important now, is to pull out from that peak experience, just like these other exercises we've talked about what was cool for you. What was neat about that experience? It's a little bit less about the exact details and more about why was that a peak experience for you. One person who's thinking about, let's say, a trip out west might say it was the planning, it was the logistics, deciding where we would go, where we would stay, all that other good stuff. Another person on that same trip might say something completely different. It was about the food and the company and being in the moment or being outside. Two people, same peak experience, but a completely different set of values. And that's how you can start to pull those out. And the reason why we want you to think about your values is they are basically your guideposts to fulfillment. They help you identify what's going to be important to you in terms of the tasks that you perform. Where will you get the most meaning? The people that you work with, the types of people that you work with, the culture and the work environment that you're in. By the way, if the work environment or culture that you're in steps on your values, it's not going to be a good thing. There's going to be a rub there and a problem. And so your values really like influence every piece of our career model and also are going to influence whether you're satisfied at your job or not. And what happens to us just naturally right now, whether you know your values or not, is you're already kind of making decisions in alignment with your values. It's like a subconscious way that we already make decisions. But what we really want you to do is start to proactively, first, like we said earlier, align your life and career decisions more so with your values. As a quick reminder, these are the different ways that you can do this. Like we talked about, the link to the slides is in the chat box. One thing to consider when you're thinking about your values, and we'd love to actually know how many people feel like they already know them. So if we could launch our second poll, that would be great, Allison. One thing to really think about when you're identifying your values, or if you already do know them, which is great, is there is a difference between career values and personal values. So your personal values are ones that you might say, I'm really okay honoring those a little bit more in my personal life. I don't have to worry about those as much with work. But career values tend to be ones that are really a very high priority for you as a person, so much so that you want at least some of your work life to reflect those values in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so that's how you can start to identify those a little bit. And it looks like so far we've got a really good number in the poll that do know their values already, which is fantastic. I would encourage you to evaluate your values at least once a year, maybe twice a year, not because they're going to suddenly change direction dramatically, but sometimes our values will move around in order of priority, and that can influence our next choices, career-wise and otherwise. So the fact that those 60% do, keep reevaluating them. And for those 40% that don't know them, that's why you're here today. So let's get started with one of these exercises. But remember, they can change and adjust a little bit over time based on not just how you define them, but how you want to honor them too. So good to keep them updated. And we talked about this already. So this brings us into considering each piece of the model. But just as a quick reminder before we get to the next slide, that your values can be represented in different pieces of the model. So know that, like, when you're thinking about your priorities and also your values, in some cases, some of your values might be related to like financial stability, related to compensation. So here's what we want to think about and encourage you to use our model to brainstorm alternative ideas, narrow down the ideas maybe you already have, and make sure that you're covering all of your bases. So we'll take a look at this for an extra minute right now as we're looking at this slide. So great idea to define fulfillment first and brainstorm ideas using Google, using job boards, lots of different ways that you can identify alternative options for you. But we want you to think about fulfillment as a starting point. Then you can go ahead and say, what are the other tasks that I would like to perform in addition to those core ones? So for example, me as a career coach, the other things I enjoy doing are creating PowerPoint presentations. I kind of have a knack for marketing and sales, and I luckily enjoy doing that a little bit as well. The key here is to make sure that you don't flip these two around. And I'll use me as a very quick example here is I used to have a job actually in marketing and communications. That was not fulfilling to me. It's not a value for me. It doesn't belong in the fulfillment piece. It belongs for me as like a nice to have, icing on the cake. Because doing marketing and communications all day, every day was not rewarding for me. It's something I like to do part of the time. So make sure you don't confuse these two because you could end up on the wrong path. We then want you to look at your strengths. Very important. You need to leverage these for fulfillment, but also practical considerations to get the jobs that you want, to be qualified for them. It's a great idea to identify your top 5 strengths, whether you interview other people, whether you leverage an assessment online or use an assessment like the StrengthsFinder assessment to help you identify those. This can help you brainstorm alternative ideas, but also narrow down some of the ideas that you have to make sure you're qualified. Do the same thing here, please, with experience in education. What past experience have you had that you really enjoyed and maybe you forgot about it and forgot how much you enjoyed it? What classes did you take at Wake that you really enjoyed? I thought about this when I was thinking about my career path, and I was like, oh yeah, I really loved my communications and my psychology courses at Vanderbilt. So these are also areas that you might come up with alternative ideas, but you're using these pieces too to, again, narrow things down. Make sure that you do not forget to consider your personality type when you're thinking about the next job for you. If you're more introverted, you cannot go looking for a job where it's going to force you to be extroverted. You're going to be tired and drained energy-wise, or vice versa. And then finally, last but absolutely not least, still critically important, consider the right work environment for you. Is it more laid back or is it more structured and formal? Would you rather be at a large organization or a smaller one? What are the types of people that ideally you'd like to work with? Again, knowing that nothing's going to be absolutely perfect, but we want to try to control for as much as we possibly can. And then last, narrow down your ideas by compensation. Again, not because it's not important, but you've got your big you've cast your net really wide with all of these great ideas, starting with the fulfillment piece first, and you're narrowing down those ideas based on practical considerations as you go. There are so many jobs out there that you and I just don't even know exist. It's worth spending the time doing the research. We always offer a free consult to people who are interested in learning about coaching. We do offer a discount for Wake Forest alum. So if you do schedule this with me, please make sure you let me know and remind me that you came from this webinar, because I'll give you that coupon code. The way to schedule the consult is in the chat box. I just put a link there, and also you can use the QR code either way. So let's talk next about searching and getting into, okay, what do I do next once I've started to identify some possible ideas? Well, once you've done that, to narrow down your ideas and see what's practical or realistic, or cast your net a little bit wider, is to look at job boards and job descriptions. It's to start networking and talking with people. And this is where your Wake Forest Alumni Association and all the resources they have to help you connect with other alum can be incredibly helpful, because we want you to talk to as many people as possible, to brainstorm ideas with, to narrow down your ideas, to find out what it's really like to work at a certain organization or in a certain role. Talking with people is the best way to do this. And jobs are still secured by connections and networking, even with all this technology out there that we now have with LinkedIn, AI, all of this other stuff. The statistics show still that the majority of people who secure a new position have done so through networking. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that yes, it is helpful and a good idea to apply to jobs online, absolutely, but don't only do that and then sit there and wait and hope for the best. We want you to talk with as many people as possible too. And if you look at the bottom left-hand side of the slide, when or if you feel like I need to cast my net a little bit wider. So for example, if you've been laid off and you're like, I want to find something I enjoy, but I also need to pay my bills, so I need to get some alternative ideas. You can brainstorm ideas using job boards by plugging in keywords to those and seeing what pops up. You can Google careers in or careers related to XYZ, data analysis, event planning, whatever it is you've done before. Websites like myplan.com can be very helpful to brainstorm career ideas, and onetcenter.org is another helpful one too. So there's different career brainstorming websites out there that can help you see what else exists that you didn't know about. And this is what we really want you to encourage you to do, as we've said before. So as part of job searching, The obvious other things we need to be doing are revising your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And as we go, please feel free to go ahead and pop some questions or comments into the chat box. We'll get to Q&A in about 10 minutes, give or take. But go ahead and start noodling on those and putting anything in there because we'd love to see those too. So it's really important to update your resume, LinkedIn profile, cover letter, all that good stuff, and have it match and be branded. And we'll show you what we mean in the next couple of slides. So with your resume, these are some of the top tips. A couple of things that I always like to reference because people tend to forget. If you take a look on this slide, it's really important to get those keywords in there so that you can get past the scanning systems. This is why, again, the networking piece is important because the keywords, like we want you to have those, but you can't totally trust that you're going to have every single exact right keyword for the specific company's algorithm. So again, this is why we want you to do the networking as well. But make sure you've got those keywords in certain places on your resume. In your summary statement, you've got a keyword section. The other thing that we want you to make sure of is that you mention marketable results every time with your bullet points. So make sure that they're results oriented. Whether you have numbers or not, you can still make them very results oriented. And one of the things that you can do is you can use ChatGPT and AI to help you with some of this. Now, what I will tell you to be safe about it is you do not want to just strictly rely on AI and ChatGPT for making your updates and just copy and paste it. Employers and recruiters can tell and they don't like it. Things are always worded a certain way and they start to notice what those kind of themes are. So make sure that if you do use ChatGPT and AI, that you adjust it and make changes so that it's also in your own voice and it's not just copying and pasting it verbatim, okay? As part of revising your resume, we do want you to have like some kind of branding at the top. And I'll show you what we mean by this on this next slide here for just a second. Doesn't have to look exactly like this. This person was in a more creative field, so she opted for a little bit more of a creative with the box and all of that jazz. The bottom line here is that we want you to make sure that you've got all of your contact information at the top, but you also have branded yourself using the job title of the job that you're applying to with that resume, and you've got a tagline that helps explain who you are and what you bring to the table. Too many people don't brand their resumes as much as we would like them to, and we want the person basically who lands on your resume and is seeing it with the human eye, and also there's the computer bots too, like we said, but we want them to know right away, this person is a coach and a facilitator. So they lead team workshops, leadership workshops, whatever it is, okay? And these are the types of things that they can bring to the table. So make sure that you're branding your resume and your LinkedIn, we'll talk about that in a moment, so that it's immediately obvious and evident who you are. So for me, for example, it would be certified career coach. And like my elevator speech at the beginning, we help people find jobs they love and make it happen. Let's talk next about your LinkedIn profile. So a couple of things when you're updating your LinkedIn profile, and there's a lot here to work on with LinkedIn, but the basics you want to start with, starting on the left-hand side of this slide. Your about section, we need it to be keyword optimized, but we also want you, it's okay if you've written the majority of it in third person, but we encourage you to use a little bit of first person as well. It can be a little bit more personal, so you're speaking to the reader. Make sure that you've got a professional photo and a branded banner, which we'll show you in a moment. Measurable results for as many of your bullet points as you can have. And then take a look at the middle here. If you get recommendations from people, which we highly recommend, you can use them in different places on your resume, your cover letter. You can use them in your experience section in your LinkedIn profile too. On your LinkedIn, you need to make sure that you've search engine optimized it and you've got those right keywords in there as well. You can use AI here again to help you with that a little bit. Make sure finally on the bottom of the middle here and then on the right-hand side too, go through your settings. It's probably, or if it has been, I should say, a long time since you've gone through your settings. LinkedIn changes things all the time. They've got new settings, new features, all this good stuff. So it's a really good idea periodically, and especially now as you get into job search mode, that you have everything filled out and visible as you want it to be visible. And you've also checked the I am open to new opportunities. I want to be viewed by employers and recruiters box. And then finally, make sure you have some help with this. Proofread it, have a friend, coach like us, write it for you, or at least proofread it with you and teach you how to use LinkedIn. We look at people's, or when I should say, you're looking at your resume and your LinkedIn over and over, making those updates, we tend to skip over and kind of don't notice those grammatical errors anymore. And it's really important to work on those. Okay. So here's what we mean by branding your LinkedIn profile. Is if we take a look at the right-hand side here, we want you to have an image behind your headshot, not just the standard like blank gray and blue thing that LinkedIn provides you with as like their standard. Pick an image that is relevant to your industry, or use a really nice picture of the campus of Wake Forest or the city skyline where you live, but have something there versus nothing, because it's part of branding you as this is who I am. We really want people also to have a tagline on top of their image that speaks to the value that you can bring to a prospective employer. So this is what we mean by a branded banner. And Allison, I think we can go ahead and we'll launch our third and our last poll today too. I'm curious how many people have a branded banner. And then the other things we want you to think about here with LinkedIn is making sure that you've got this keyword optimized here, your header underneath your name. You've got all of your contact information visible, and we do want you to move towards getting to up to, I should say, 500 plus connections over time, because people will see you as well connected, you care about your career, and LinkedIn also views that kind of favorably as well. A little bit of the game we have to play here. So we'll take a look at our poll results in just a moment. It looks like so far we've got 50-50 neck and neck. So this could be one of the first things that you want to choose as your action step. We've got a really great LinkedIn guide. The QR code is there that can help you with this, and also how to get in front of employers and find people that are hiring, because there are ways to do that. And if we look at our poll results, like we said a second ago, it's about 50-50. So I'm glad that some people do. That's awesome. I do see that more people have this, which is great, and are noticing it's important. If you don't have one, it is something that you want to work on, because you want to demonstrate and show that you're up to date on LinkedIn. You know how to use it. You've been there, et cetera, et cetera. And then the final kind of thought that we want to share with you, and then we'll get to our Q&A, is, and I'll use an example here as well as explaining this. So remember how I've been saying that, yes, leverage job boards, but also you need to talk with as many people as possible. We want you to join the Alumni Association, LinkedIn group, any other groups that Wake Forest has, because those are going to be warmer leads for you and people who are more likely to get back to you. And what we tell our clients is that you want to view your search like sales, right? Salespeople know that if they're going to get, let's say, a 10 or 20% response rate or return rate, which is not incredibly high, right? You need to increase your numbers and how many people you reach out to. So we're saying this to you because we realize that you may reach out to some people and they might ignore you, and we don't want you to get bummed out by that. My example is, we have a client who, he happens to be here in Atlanta, and he was laid off. He was given notice at the end of the year that he was going to be laid off by like March 1st, give or take. And he has been following our advice. He's been attending multiple events every week, talking to as many people as possible, having lunch, coffee, etc., even while he's still working, and he already has some irons in the fire. So the more people you connect with and talk to, the sooner you will get something new, the right position and a new one. And because we don't want you to get so attached to each reach out, because sometimes you're not going to hear from people, plenty of times you're not going to get the job. We don't want people to have this up and down roller coaster thing of they get really excited about their reach outs and then they don't hear back and then they're bummed out and they don't do more. We want you to see it, and I hate to say it this way, but it really is a numbers game. And we want you to be excited and enthusiastic about each reach out, but we don't want you to be too attached to each one because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So if you take nothing else away but this from what we talked about today, this is the perspective we want you to have with your search so that you can stay on track and stay positive and enthusiastic and move to the next thing and say, okay, who's the next person I'm going to talk to? What's the next job I'm going to apply to? And until you get some traction and things are starting to hit for you. All right. So remember at the beginning, we said one action step. Get out your piece of paper, please, or your phone or whatever is best for you on your computer, and write down one action step that you will take for this next week. And please share it in the chat box. I see a question and I'll get to that. But we'd love to see your action steps as well. It could be, I'm ready to update my materials. It could be, I need to use the career model to brainstorm ideas. Or it could be something completely different. The QR codes for the slides and the console are here. And as you're writing down your action steps, let's go ahead and share those, and I will answer this question. Current direction of job market. Shifting from a job seeker's market to an employer's market, which it absolutely is. More seekers, less openings. How picky can people be about finding the perfect job? What concessions need to be made? Thanks for asking this because it's fantastic. Here's what I would do. I would have like a plan A, B, and C. So plan A is ideal job and you're going for those and you're, doing as much as you can to get that position or that type of position. But you've also got some kind of backup options that are related or similar, but maybe not exactly the right thing. We always, well, I shouldn't say that. In a lot of cases, depending on the economy and the market, there are some concessions that we may need to make. And yes, we probably will need to make a little bit more in this case. So have kind of categories or buckets of things and apply for A, B, and C. Work towards the A if you can. And in some cases, you might say, okay, if I can't get A right now, I'm going to take B, but that's going to help me move in that direction. So in some cases, you may have to make a concession about the size of the organization is less than ideal, or I'm not as jazzed about the product or service that we offer, but for example, or that they offer, but for example, the work environment seems great, so I'm going to take it. In some cases, we may need to make more of a lateral move versus getting a bump up in pay. So be realistic about things and have a few different options out there. Don't give up on the dream, though. It may not be the exact next job that you get. Maybe you need to get a bridge job in between now and that next one, but still keep your eye on the prize. Hopefully that answers as a starting point. A couple of people are sharing their actions, brand my resume, which is great, using the job sites, find some new ideas. That's awesome. Another person is asking, and this is a great question too, how important are the endorsements? Do they value those, and how many should we try to attain? I would worry less about the skills endorsements and focus more on having a robust number of skills and getting up to the maximum number of skills that you can have there, and having your top 5 be in order of priority of importance. Then I would work on endorsements later. I don't feel, and from what I know about LinkedIn currently, those endorsements of the skills are not quite as important as the other things are on your LinkedIn profile currently. So I'd also work on the skills and getting those recommendations too. Allison asked, which is great, how aligned should your resume and profile be? Are there things that should not go on LinkedIn? So your resume is going to be more tailored to each position. So you want to have more specific results and more things that are relevant to that particular job on your resume. Your LinkedIn can be more, and we want it to be a little bit more of a teaser to your resume. So especially if you are trying to search for a few different types of jobs, you can make your LinkedIn a little bit more generic. Still have it be results oriented though. And I know that may seem like an oxymoron, but what I mean by that is you might say project management, 100% or whatever percent of projects are delivered on time and under budget. That's still results oriented, but you're not talking about the types of projects nor the industry that they were in. So there are ways to kind of genericize your LinkedIn to demonstrate that you can add value to a prospective employer, but it doesn't have to be industry specific. Hopefully that answers as a starting point. And another person had networking as their action step. So Allison, while we're waiting for other questions and comments to come through, is there anything that you would like to mention or reference related to what you all offer?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you for all this great content, Hallie. I really appreciate it. And especially that last point that you made about if you remember nothing else from this. So my team manages the Wake Forest LinkedIn alumni group. So the main university alumni group. There are some other more targeted groups for different subpopulations that other people manage. And I would always recommend that everyone look into those to see what kind of value there is there. But that main university alumni LinkedIn group, the Wake Forest alumni LinkedIn group, is where we really encourage people to make connections. We post any alumni focused job opportunities there. We post all of our programs such as these on there, as well as on our website. We also have 2 e-newsletters that you can sign up for, and I will share that information in the follow-up resources as well as how you find and get subscribed to those newsletters where we push out a lot of information on programs and opportunities to get connected. But the Wake Forest Alumni Group is strong. We don't have a paid alumni association like other schools do. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a very strong network of people who want to help and support other alumni. So we always encourage folks to put that network to use and also think about other places where you have networks, right? So do you have a high school network? Did you go to graduate school? Are you part of professional associations and things of that nature? That are additional ways to broaden and diversify your opportunities.
Those are huge. And, to piggyback on that, thanks for sharing it, is we've all heard the networking can happen anywhere. And I feel like people are like, yeah, I know. But it really can. Like we've had clients get interviews through their daycare provider because another parent there was working at an architecture firm and, yada, yada, and they were all talking. So there are just a lot of different places that you can do this. And we really encourage you to get creative with that networking piece as well.
A conversation I had recently with a Wake Forest alumna, she was going to a conference, a professional conference, but was really nervous. She was going on her own and wanted to know some tips and strategies for, how do I network when I'm there by myself, right? And we all know some of us aren't as skilled, and I count myself as one of these people in terms of the quote unquote working a room. And one thing I suggested to her was if there is an opportunity for you to volunteer to have an actual task at this event, then you have a job to do and you have a reason to talk to people. And she did that, and she called me afterwards and was just so excited. And she said, you would not believe the number of people I met, the number of connections I made, how fun and exciting it was, and how energized I am from that experience. So, put yourself in a space, make it easy on yourself to do this work that sometimes can be, a little overwhelming and challenging, but has such great benefits.
Yeah, it's great advice. You've got a task and a job, Here's why I need to talk with you. Because that's what I say to people too, is like prepare in advance. What's something I could say as an icebreaker and like kind of think of what you could say. And that's one great way to do that. So I think that that's awesome.
That's right. Hallie, anything else that you want to add about people connecting with you afterwards? I saw that you put your boot camp in the chat, and we will add that to the follow-up email as well. But also in terms of if they want to reach out to you for a consultation, what they might expect from that.
Yeah. So happy to talk with you to figure out if coaching is the right thing for you. So there's no pressure. It's just to ask questions about how we work, the different options that we offer. We have one-on-one coaching, we have courses, and then we do just resume and LinkedIn if people just need those. So there's lots of different options. With the one-on-one coaching, it's scheduled once a week, every other week. The sessions are 55 minutes. We've got a lot of great resources that we provide to you along the way, and we're giving you advice about whatever your situation is as it relates to your transition. So it's always tailored to you. So there is more information on our website, and when you go to that schedule a consult, we'll direct you to the pages that we want you to take a look at to give you some ideas.
That's so great. And remember everyone to mention that you are with Wake Forest, and that will get you a little break on the price for that if you choose to work with Hallie. So I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Hallie, for sharing your time, your expertise. As I've mentioned, I will share not only the recording once we have that ready to go, but also all of these great additional resources, how to connect with Hallie and her team. So other than that, I want, I hope everyone has a great day, a great rest of the week, and to see you soon at another one of our programs. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good luck. Keep us posted.